Alright, hello everybody and welcome back to another tutorial video. Today we're going to be going over tags, which is an essential part in a lot of maps. Essentially what tags are is, well, as the name suggests, you are able to tag items within your map. Normally, if you're putting items individually into your code, you would have to drag each one or connect each one of them through an editable. But if you're going to have a bunch of devices or a bunch of props or a bunch of anything that's going to be doing the same thing, whether it be collecting coins to grant experience or making your own doors or you're moving props, spinning props, anything that's going to constantly be doing the same thing, you can create a tag for, and then anything you assign that tag to will do it without having to create multiple tags. Multiple edibles. So, like on death runs here, where you normally would have a checkpoint between each level that would not only save your progress, but also grant experience, well, you don't want to have to create an editable or manually connect all of those collectibles to your accolade devices. If you use a tag, then any collectible that you assign that tag to will automatically trigger the device or whatever other code you want to do as soon as you collect it. So tags are just a way to make your job way easier anytime you are trying to do a map. Wow, I'm getting tongue-tied. Anytime you have a bunch of things doing the same thing, I mean, that's all it boils down to. So I'm over-explaining it at this point, I feel like. So let's just go ahead and jump into it. Alright, so as always, to keep things organized, it's best to separate things by their function. So you normally want a different file for your verses, for your tags. I normally just call it tag manager, but since I already have one of those, we'll just name it something else. So we're going to create a new verse file. We'll just call it tag demo. And create. And then we'll go over to our verse explorer. Okay, so now that we are actually in the verse file, I'm going to go ahead and try to keep things zoomed in like I did in the previous video, make things easier for people to read as we're going along. If it ends up being too zoomed in for anybody, y'all just let me know in the comments and I can stop doing that in the future. So first things first, outside of the actual class, we need to create our tag. Or actually, that's the second thing. First thing, need to make sure you're including this, which is the using verse.org/simulation/tags. Otherwise, the tags won't function and you'll get an error. And I always just include the spatial math and the diagnostics as well, because I never know what I'm going to be needing. And those are pretty universal. Honestly, I don't know why they're not included by default. But make sure you include the tags up here. And then down here, we'll need to create it. We'll just call it demo tag. And it is a tag class, or well, a class of type tag, I guess is a better way to remember it since it's written that way. How did I miss the A and the G there? Wow. Okay, so that was very butchered the way I just typed that, but all it is you have to create where you're going to store your tags, class of tag. So now this will generate a tag in the editor that you can assign to things. Is all that we've done. It doesn't do anything yet. It doesn't have any meaning yet. All this is creating a tag called demo tag. Okay, so now that the tag is created, what are we using this tag for? You could have a tag for your, say you wanted everyone to be given an item when they first joined a map. Well, you could create a tag for all of your spawners, and anytime someone joined the game through one of those spawners, anything assigned to that tag would trigger. Or the most common one in death runs is just the coins that you collect. For all the collectible devices, you can create, instead of having 200 collectible coin devices or editables for collectible devices in here, you could just create one tag and assign it to all 200 coins. And then anytime someone picked up one of those coins, any function associated with that tag would trigger. Or, I don't know, that's probably the simplest. I mean, you can use tags for anything that you have multiple objects doing. Whether you're creating custom doors, you could create a tag for anytime someone clicks on a door, it swings the door open 90 degrees. Tags are just one of the most useful things in all of UEFN and Verse, because it removes so much extra work, so much redundant code. It is just a great thing for any time you have multiple objects or devices that you're going to be doing the same thing with. To start with on this one, I guess we'll just do the collectible device. Unfortunately, there's already multiple videos out there showing how to use tags on the collectible devices, but it is the simplest for people to learn with, and since this is a death run tutorial series, it's going to be the best one. Depending on how long this video ends up being, I might go ahead and show at the end how to use it for something else as well, but we'll see how long this is. So we don't want to do it in our onBegin function. Compartmentalization is a key part of coding or object-oriented programming, as most people have learned it as, where you just want to keep things separated. So that if something goes wrong and you have bugs, it's easier to identify where the problem is. So we're going to, outside of the onBegin function, we're going to create a function to set up our tags, and we'll just call it setup tags. I cannot type today. All right. So, wow, I really can't type. So in this function, the first thing we have to do is actually initialize the tags. Yes, we've created them, but Verse hasn't located them and determined what they are yet. So we'll initialize them as demo is what we'll call them. You can use any name you want. This is basically just going to be a container that stores a list of everything you have put the tag on. I say list. It's not actually a list. It's a generator is what they're calling it. Previously, okay, I'll go ahead and cover this real quick. When you're looking at older tutorial videos, you'll notice that they use a function called getCreativeObjectsWithTag. And ours is called demo tag. Now, why is this not... Hang on, let me refresh this. Okay, but you see, if you try to use this function, you get the yellow squiggly here, and when you hover over it, this function has been deprecated. So get creative objects with tag has actually been replaced by a new function called find creative objects with tag. And while that seems like a minor change, it does work differently. Previously, the get creative functions for tag just did exactly what I said. It made this a list, or an array is the terminology here. An array is literally just a list, though, so I'm just going to say list just because that's what I'm used to. But I will say array. That's the correct one. So it used to, when you called the get creative functions, get creative objects, it would look for everything in the map that you had assigned this tag to, put it in a list, and then this would become that list. But there were limits on what all you could do with that. There's a lot of things in the map that could not be assigned a tag that it could track or that you could do things with. I feel like going down this rabbit hole is going to be way too much for a beginner course. So we'll just say that going forward with the future of UEFN, while they're trying to give us more options and more things give us more control. We can bring in better assets and all sorts of other things. This function that returns a generator instead of an array is going to work a lot better in the future of UEFN. So that we'll just leave it at that for now. So you'll use find creative instead of get creative. And for all intents and purposes for now, it's going to do the same thing. So if you had followed an old tutorial and you're suddenly getting that error, just change the word get to change the word find to the word find, and it should work for the most part. All right, so now that we have found all of the things in our map that we've put that tag on, the next step is to actually do something with them. So we have, even though it's a generator, it still works just like a list. So we'll use a for loop. And you can use anything here, but I'm just going to use I. So for I in demo, which is our list, so for every object within our list, and that we need to make sure that it's the type we're searching for. If you're, I mean, you can assign the tag to anything. So say you had use the same tag for your collectible devices as you did for your doors. Well, obviously you don't want them to do the same things. You don't want your collectible coins to suddenly start moving 90 degrees from their original position every time somebody tries to open a door. So you first have to check and make sure that they're all the same type. So since we're doing collectible coins or a collectible object, we need to check that each item within demo is a collectible object. So is what we're going to do here first. So we'll just call it coin. And we are comparing it to collectible objects. And I believe that's a device still. Nope. Okay. So we're going to go a for loop that's going to go through all of demo and assign each item into it that I for that iteration is why I use I. So for the first iteration of demo, if the item in the first slot is a collectible object device, it's going to do whatever's here. And then it's going to continue through this for loop. And then the next item in the list, so if the next item in the list is a collectible object, then that gives us a coin. We can use it for a function. So what function are we going to use? I'm just going to throw a block in there right now, keep from getting errors. So what are we actually doing whenever a coin is collected? Well, we're just going to trigger XP is how it works on most death runs. So we're going to need to bring in an add editable for an accolade device. Well, no, it wouldn't be as easy to see. Just for the demo, I'm going to do just a pop-up device. You could do accolade the same way. So back up here, before the on begin, we need to go ahead and make that editable. And we'll call it, we'll just call it MSG for message. And it is a HUD message device of type HUD message device. And just throw in the brackets. Oh, whoops, that was supposed to be an equals. I'm telling y'all, I cannot type to save my life. So now that we've got that created, every time someone collects a coin, or collects a coin that we have tagged, it should trigger this message. So it's going to be show, and the person who collected it is always going to be an agent. All right, so all this is anytime this function is triggered, it's going to show, or the message device we just created up here is going to show its message to player A, is all this function does. So every time, so for each collectible device in this list, this function will apply, which is coin dot I believe it's collected event. Yes. Dot subscribe and show. We're just going to change the name on that because I think it might be because I had, yeah, so there was an issue because I was using the same name on those, so that's easy fix. So all this is it's going to go, y'all are going to get tired of me repeating myself, but the whole point of this was to make sure people were able to easily understand it. So for this loop, it goes through each item in the demo list. For that item, it checks collectible object I. If that item is a collectible object, it assigns it to coin. And then that coin, from then on out throughout the game, listens for any time it's been picked up. It's going to listen to that who picked it up, and then trigger show message to that person. Is what this is doing. So now any collectible object we assign demo tag to in our map is going to automatically trigger this HUD message device for the person who collected it. Again, normally you would use an accolade device to give experience to the person who collected it, but this will be easier to see just for a test. You could just change this from HUD message device to accolade device, and it would do the same thing. So now that's all we need this to do. So we just need to set it to start when the game starts. So on begin, we will set up our tags. We go back to the editor, verse, build first code, because the tags are not in the game until we build that. All right, so let's throw in some collectible object devices just to test this. We'll do you. All right. And so go ahead and just click on one of them. And right here on the right, add and search for tag. First tag markup. And right here on the tags, click the edit. And I already had a bunch of others in this map from other things, but that's why I said build the verse code first, otherwise this wouldn't show up. And demo tag is one we're using. So we're going to skip this second one for now. And on the third one, same thing, we'll add that tag. And of course we need to actually bring our device into the map. So when you create a verse file, it's always going to create you a new device, tag demo. And for our HUD message device, I've already got an extra one over here, so we'll just say coin collected for the message. And make sure you assign your message device here. Because again, when you create, it's been explained in other videos, but anytime you have an editable in your verse code, you can find it, it'll show up in your device right here, and you have to actually assign it to something in the map, which again is the whole point of doing tags. Because if we did not have tags, every single coin in your map would have to have an editable on here, and so you would have to go back through and manually assign 100, 200, 300, however many levels you had. You would have to do that for every single one instead of just doing a tag, because like on here, we put a tag on that one, and now we can copy and drag it, and the new one already has the same tag. It literally saves you dozens, if not hundreds of hours on complicated maps just using tags. But that should be it, so we're going to go ahead and push changes. And if I didn't forget anything, then these 3 coins, when we collect, it's going to pop up with a message saying it was collected, and this one won't since we didn't put a tag on it. Alright, so in the game, so grab the first one, coin message pops up. Second one should do the same thing. And third one, nothing should happen. Let's let the message wear off. Yep. So any collectible device you put in the game with that tag on it is going to automatically display this message. You could set it up to automatically grant experience. You could set it up to automatically raise a level or grant an item or take an item away, or any function you want to create can be applied to that. And I don't think that this has taken too much time to go over, so I do think I'll go ahead and go back and give that second example on things other than collectibles. So let's jump back over to verse. All right, so we're back in verse now. I mean, like I said, all we have is this one. I can't even call it a paragraph. It's so little code. Verse, and it does the same thing that you would get from having 200 plus editables and 1,000 lines of code doing it another way. So tags are definitely a great benefit. But say, like I said, we'll what do we want to do? Let's just move props, have them spin, rotate, or something. Which we covered how to make things move in the previous video, so I'm not going to go into detail about how to do that. We're just going to go ahead and show you how to change this over to work for that instead of collectibles. So move over. This was the code we had in the previous tutorial for moving props. We'll just do the rotate one. So we'll just go ahead and copy this over into our tag demo. And we're going to use this code instead of the show message. If you have any questions about how this works, just go back and watch my previous video. So now, same thing. We have our demo tag class. Nothing changes with that. Nothing changes with the setup. Nothing changes with the find. The only thing that changes is while we're going through this for loop, instead of looking for collectible object devices, we are now going to be looking for creative props. So, I mean, I don't have to change the name here, but I will just to make it easier. So instead of calling it coin, we'll call it prop. Oh, I had caps lock on. And so instead of collectible object devices, we are now searching for any creative prop with that tag. And for any creative props that it finds within that list, we will now rotate said prop. But again, this was covered in the previous one. You cannot directly put in a function with the suspends on it. You would have to spawn it. So rotate prop, and the prop we are rotating is prop. So now let's go back to the editor and just throw in some, oh, wait a minute. I don't want it to move just once, just so it's easier to see. Let's put it in a loop. And don't really need it for, this is just a demo, but just as a good practice, anytime you do have a loop, make sure you have a way to break out of it, as infinite loops are horrible. So we'll just call it stop of type logic, and we'll set it equal to false. And anytime that is false, we will move the prop. And just since we have this set up, if for some reason we reuse this code later, we will already have a breakout mechanic. So if it is not false, then we break out of the loop. So right now this is going to run infinitely because we have no way set up to change this from false to true. But again, we don't need that right now. But it's always a good idea whenever you have a loop, just go ahead and make sure you do have a way to break out of it. So even though we're not using it, still a good practice. All right, well, now that we've got that loop set up, we can go actually do the prop in the editor. So what prop do we want? It doesn't really matter. Let's just search for some props. We'll do a random statue. We'll do an adventure plushie. And whatever these things are. Whoop, that's not what I meant to do. A bit big, but it'll still work. And again, anything we apply that tag to is going to use the code that we just wrote. So in theory, if we assign that tag to all three of these, they should automatically start rotating. So again, we will add a tag markup, demo tag, same thing here. And so this allows us to modify or use all of these props in verse without having to create edibles or direct key bindings or anything. We create that one tag, and anything with that tag we can manipulate. So let's go ahead and build the verse code, and then we'll push all changes since we did change stuff in the map as well. Okay. Yeah, so here we go. They are as weird as it looks. Anything that you put that tag on automatically rotates. Well, since we go ahead and went this, we can just show off something a minute ago. Because like I said, it is possible to use the same tag for different things with different functions. Because right now we had removed the tag for the coins, so they're not currently doing anything. But we can put back in that code we were using a minute ago, and it'll still work if we just put back in the original for loop. So let me jump back into verse real quick. All right, so shortcut it a little bit and just held down Control Z until this was back. But yeah. Don't need that. So it's still the same tag, but we can have both for loops in here. So anything with that tag that is a collectible object will use this function. And then anything with the same tag that is a creative prop would use this function instead. So not really a necessary thing, but if you're still just trying to reduce code, it is good to know that you can use the same tag for multiple things. So just wanted to show that off real quick. So if we go ahead and rebuild the verse code, now the props should be moving and the coins should be working. So build verse code, push verse changes. All right, so the props are still moving and the coins are working. Whee! A weird prop. I think that was from like the primal season around the spire, but I don't know. That's kind of weird. And I don't remember ever seeing this one in game, but regardless, that's irrelevant. That's your basics on all the tags. As far as this other stuff you see sitting around, that if you'd watched the previous videos, they're all for that. Again, this is just kind of a work area. This whole map was designed for this tutorial series. I will put the code on screen and in the comments for anyone who wants to look at it, but it covers everything we're doing in the series, from moving props to the tags we just did, to basic mechanics, creating materials, etc., etc. So if you're trying to learn how to do any of the things you see in this map, just watch the series. Between time at work, I mean, things being a bit hectic at work, and I'm not gonna lie, I've been addicted to the new Monster Hunter game that came out. I haven't been spending too much time on these tutorials, so I'm still going to try to do at least 1 or 2 a month, and hopefully it helped somebody. If y'all have any questions, throw them in the comments. Once all the videos have been out for a little while, I'll go back into a Q&A if there's enough questions, and y'all have a good one.